Here we go. Everybody good? Yep. Sweet. Give me just a second.
And we're muting our mics between.
Yes, that would be great. All right, we're going. All right, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. My name is Larry Law. I'm the Executive Director of the Great Lakes Independent Booksellers Association. I am also on the board of Art Bar. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. I know there's a lot going on in the world, so we appreciate it. I hope you can get a little entertainment tonight. So this is the third lit show that Art Bar and GLIBA has partnered to put on. We have an amazing lineup of authors and artists this year. As you may or may not know, Art Bar is an artist collective that's based out of Aurora, Illinois. We put on monthly themed pop-up art shows. In a non-pandemic year, we meet in person and we hold these shows at Two Brothers Roundhouse in Aurora the first Friday of every month. Since the pandemic, we've pivoted and are trying some new things. So we're doing some virtual shows. We're doing some virtual galleries. So yeah, we're trying to keep it going. The Great Lakes Independent Booksellers Association is a nonprofit organization that was founded in the protection of free speech and is an advocacy group for independent bookstores in the Great Lakes region and the Midwest. I want to start out by thanking the Art Bar board and our show curator, Javi, who's the force behind Art Bar. He hates any public acknowledgement, so I'm going to take this opportunity to do that. This is Javi's 119th show that he's curated. We put these shows on every month. Nobody gets paid. This is all volunteer work, so it's purely a work of passion for all of us. So thank you, Javi. Thank you, Art Bar board. It's very much appreciated. I also wanted to thank our sponsors tonight. We have a few, publisher Milkweed Editions, One World Books, Penguin Books, and Two Brothers Roundhouse has sponsored us. In a normal year, like I said, Two Brothers is the venue that they let us put these shows on. And since we've had to pivot to virtual and not be able to meet in person, they're still sponsoring our events, which is awesome, and we greatly appreciate it. Like I said earlier, I'm thrilled with our selection of authors and artists. Please join me in welcoming author Benjamin Garcia, Nate Marshall, and Kathleen Rooney will be joining us a little bit later. As well, join me in thanking artists Alfredo Castil, Deepayan Bose, and Jenn Wilson, who each created a unique piece of art for tonight's event. So that being said, like I just said, we did something special and a little different during this event. Artists were paired with authors and received a copy of their latest books. And then they created a piece of art that was influenced by that book. So the kind of flow for tonight's event will be as follows. We'll have an author do a presentation directly followed by the artist that created a piece of art for that author. I also wanted to mention during the show, during the author presentations in the Facebook Live chat, Javi will be throwing in links to purchase the author's books. All the books are linked to independent bookstores in the Midwest. Like all of us right now, indie bookstores are struggling. So if you hear something you dig tonight, please support these authors and please support the indie bookstores. All of them can easily ship books, so no worry about having to go somewhere to pick it up. I also wanted, since we kind of have two groups meeting tonight, I also wanted to take the opportunity to shout out local artists. So Art Bar, like I said, is a community group that puts together and tries to showcase local art and local artists. So we have the holiday coming up. I would strongly encourage you to consider commissioning and supporting a local artist. I know it would mean the world to them. I'm a local artist myself. It's amazing when something like that happens. and it helps to keep our communities unique and vibrant. So please consider that. That's all the housekeeping I have. So I'd like to jump right into the author presentations. First up, we have Benjamin Garcia, author of Thrown in the Throat from Milkweed Editions. Benjamin Garcia's first collection of poems, Thrown in Throat, was selected for the 2019 National Poetry Series by Kazim Ali. He is a 2019 Lambda Literary Fellow, was a 2017 Latinx Scholar at the Frost Place, and was a 2018 CantoMundo Fellow at the Palm Beach Poetry Festival. His work has recently appeared or is forthcoming in American Poetry Review, Best New Poets 2018, Crazyhorse, Kenyon Review, the Missouri Review, and New England Review. Garcia received an MFA from Cornell University and currently works as a sexual health and harm re-education educator in the Finger Lakes region of New York. Please welcome Benjamin Garcia.
Hi, and thanks for having me. So I'm going to read from Thrown in the Throat. This book just came out in August, and so this book deals a lot with language and how we use it, either as a way of sort of liberating ourselves or sometimes holding people down. So it will use a lot of strong language, sometimes considered slurs. It will talk about suicide and sex and a few other topics, so just as a heads up. First one I'm going to do is a part of a series. So this is an anti-ode, so it's sort of, the odes are usually in this book celebrating something or trying to, and this one in some ways is acknowledging but sort of repudiating this sort of toxicity that can be isolating. The man of war is really cool creatures, kind of like a jellyfish. It's actually made up of a lot of little tiny creatures working together. Kind of looks like one animal. And it starts with the language of hormones. So hormones are technically a kind of language in your body that's basically like code that tells your body to do things like, you know, fall apart or stop breathing. So anti-ode, man of war. In the language of hormones, I want to say, I'm sorry that you don't know the gulf between the words venom and poison, between the Father, the Son, and the Holy crap, I just got stung. Let me explain myself. Enzymes are my hello, goodbye. I've been told I have a terminal case of resting bitch face, the facts. There is a difference between venom and poison. It's all about who is doing what to whom. Bite me, and it's called a poison, venom when I bite back. This is what wars have been fought over in the holy name of whose key is unlocking whose keyhole. Another way to think of them is venoms are the tops, they're active and push in, while poisons are the bottoms, the tubers, the roots, the locks of hemlock-haired fuckboys, the cads and the rent-to-owns. You know how I know you're a poison? It's 'cause you're lazy, daisy, and docile. I lift my sail a while. And why not be the Portuguese armored warship that's my namesake? I am small and still I contain multitudes. I wonder if Whitman might have meant dudes he knew, husked and hulled and filled his debonair, crowned with windswept hair, so devil may care. Unlikely though it may seem, I'm not the jealous kind of fish. Even if I may not be kind to you, pain's the only way I know, flesh from friend. You know a relationship is extra toxic when one dolt is left stunned, defenselessly doting. No thanks, I am like the Iberian newt that would rather push his ribs through his own skin to deliver the venom than let a man touch me. That's really fucked. But I don't know any other joke except, how does one hug a box jellyfish? The punchline is, you don't. I bet you didn't think this was love poetry when it started. It isn't, except I don't know any other way to love or to be loved but for this. I want to be done with you and you with me. Do what the men of war do to the ripped torso of the surfer. I won't let you suffer. alone and not for long. I want to do with you what I've been told human urine does to the fists of pink hydrangeas in the spring before the blue blooming. So technically hydrangeas, some of them can change colors depending on if the soil is acid or a base. So that's sort of in the ending there. This one is another part of a series. It deals with suicide, and I'll just read the poem. The language in question. Defying gravity after all isn't the same as flying. After all, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Isn't the same as are you thinking you might kill yourself? We must be confident being more direct. An X drawn in orange on a tree trunk. One morning it was there, 30 feet of maple, gone by the time I came back home. The city gave me no choice. Sometimes we have no choice, and warning signs can go unnoticed until I didn't think they were serious. They wanted attention, didn't mean it. Sometimes it doesn't hurt. Death feels like a solution. Sometimes it hurts so much. After all, you are thinking of hurting yourself. No, you are thinking of hurting other people, not us. Walking a gorge late at night, leaves rustle there. Should I live and should I live? No one wants to die. Are you nobody too? Good, then we're not alone. Please don't die. It's good advice I don't want. My kind of sadness is like my favorite tree, planted long before me, shadow punctured now and then with light, when gusts goes through, and that's enough for me. The garden thrived, except the lilies planted in full sun didn't make it. I planted a new tree in the hollow of what I had lost. One day I'll rest in its shade, should I live that long. So I'm going to end with this poem. It's another ode. It's in the language of flowers. So Victorian times, you could tell someone you like them by sending them a bouquet of a certain arrangement. And if you wanted to like say no thanks, you could send back some other flowers that told them that. The corpse flower is this giant plant that kind of stinks like a rotting corpse. And this poem actually is kind of what started this collection back in 2016, 17, when the Trump administration first started. So I'm kind of glad to read it, hopefully when it's ending. Ode to the corpse flower. In the language of flowers, I am the one who says, fuck you, I won't be anyone's nosegay. This Mary is her own talking bouquet. Never let a man speak for you or call you what he wants. I learned that the hard way. Amorphophallus titanum. It sure sounds pretty in a dead tongue, except it's Latin for big ugly dick. I mean, I am, but what an asshole scientist. I prefer to think of myself, and this may sound vain, as a goddess, cadaver dressed in drag. My stage name, Versace Medusa, part Lilith, part Calla Lily. Keep your heteronormative birds and bees. Give me the necrophiliacs, the freaks, the meat-eating beetle and flesh fly. There I go again, allies, getting all hot and bothered, being vulgar. Vulgar meaning common, as when something is below you, like a girl forbidden to say fuck. It makes a woman sound so common. Oh, come on. That's all you expect from a flower. To be likable, but to keep it raw and 100 is to be abhorred. Fine. But even the haters will pay to hold their nose at a halftime show. They'll claim they are beyond Beyonce, sick of Selena, yet they can't look away from the live cam. No one wants to miss the showgirl as she breaks through the cake, unhooks her lingerie, La Virgen de Guadalupe with a twist of Santa Muerte. What in the hell is she wearing? Glad you asked. Death is the new Christian Dior. The latest Chanel is corpse smell. I am the weak old ham hock whore of horticulture. I bring the hothouse haute couture, and I always come in last place. Dressed to the nines, I get what I want, which is to be the 10th muse. Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, little Evita de Buenos Aires, screwing and screwing over los descamisados on my rainbow tour. Fuck Whitman, fuck Pound, give me Emily D. Speaking of which, have I ever told you, Daddy, only sun gods get me hard. You want it, I got it. Let me show you how a chola really leans. Mother Nature may wear floral, but I ain't your mama. I thirst like Betty Boop at Peak Coquette, Marilyn Monroe blowing in an air vent. Say Malinche, say Truvada whore, give me more. I thrive in shade. My throat is my throne, so queen me, bitch. Thanks.
Thank you, Benjamin. That was fantastic. So next up, we have artist Alfredo Castil. Alfredo created a piece of work, a couple pieces based on the work of Benjamin Garcia. Alfredo Castil, where is your info? There it is a painter and mixed media artist based out of Chicago and Aurora, Illinois. Alfredo likes hot pinks, bright blues, and yellows almost as much as he hates artist bios. You can follow him on Instagram at Fredoversal, Fredoversal. Let me get your piece up momentarily.
Yeah, so I don't know, man, my heart's still like racing. It's really hard to follow up with. Like I thought poetry in the best of cases, it's about ideas, and sorry, in the worst of cases, it's just about expressing ideas. And I think in the best, it's just about density and precision. And like just that manipulation of language that just cuts through just beyond like where language is supposed to go. So I gotta admit, like I heard about him because of this, and then I was shown the cover of the book, which is so goddamn fantastic. And I started reading some of these poems, and I was just like, how do I do this? There's so much here. There is like so I mean, I read a lot of this, and I just couldn't. I just had to put it down and then just think about it, and there were so many ideas and so many things that even though I haven't lived through, I could relate to, and some things that I could, and it was too much. So I took it one line at a time. I read it again, and I found lines that I liked, and just worked through them. The first one is, I think, just a beautiful line that is, defying gravity after all isn't the same as flying. And I brought back one of the characters that I sometimes paint, which is this kind of luchador that just has like platitudes about life. And I think I had this sketch done somewhere, and I just like went back to it and revisited it, and I was like, this is it, you know. Benjamin did I don't know, he posted in his Instagram something about this that basically kind of spoke to what I was trying to do, which is to when like luchadors kind of leap, you don't know if they're flying or falling, and you don't know if they're about to slip or win, you know. Like I wanted this to kind of exist in that kind of ambivalence, and I am happy that I did not like kind of completely misinterpret the intent of his words. So I felt, yeah. So that's it. You know, that's my silly cartoon about it. The other one, I don't know if you can post it, Larry. It's another line that is that about a poem that he just said. That was that you don't know the gulf between the words venom, and I just love that line so much, and I just thought about the precision and the density of that poem in particular. There is like, and I wanted to show the literal gulf between the words venom, but in a way that would show how beautiful the letters looked, even like so I tried my best at getting like some typography done and like splicing it in a kind of a precise way in which they would show the curves and the straight lines and the negative space and the positive space. So it was more of a graphic design approach to it, but it was just to kind of do my best to show, again, the precision and density of the language that Benjamin has. And I don't know, I even chose like this kind of slatish blue. It's just the lightest hint of blue, and I don't know if it shows, because it's one of those, it's a color that I found that someone gave me, like a little bit of house paint, and I happen to love that color, and I keep it in my basement for special occasions, because it's like I can't waste it, because it's once it's gone, it's gone. I could never mix that color ever again. And I wanted to use it here because I wanted to just kind of honor that beauty in a kind of a minimal way. So again, thank you, Benjamin, for giving me the chance of doing work that I just kind of, again, the book is so beautiful, and so there's so much there. It's I don't know, that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is wonderful. I mean, thank you. And I could say a lot more about how I think this stuff relates to the work, but I know we have to keep going.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Alfredo.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, we have author Nate Marshall. He's the author of Finna from Random House, One World. Nate Marshall is an award-winning writer, rapper, educator, and editor. He is the author and editor of numerous works, including Wild Hundreds and the breakbeat poet, New American Poetry in the Age of Hip Hop. Nate is a member of the Dark Noise Collective and co-directs Crescendo Literary. He is an assistant professor of English at Colorado College. He is from the South Side of Chicago. Please welcome Nate Marshall.
Oh, what's up? Cool, thank you for having me. Oh, dang, here we are. All right, guess I gotta read poems. Let me look at my time. All right. I guess I'll start with this. So this is the first poem in the new book, Finna, which came out in August. So yeah, I don't know, there's a book, that's cool. All right, this poem is called Landless Acknowledgement. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge that we live on some unceded bones. Sometimes, me and mine imagine ancestral homes. All I got so far is Montgomery, Alabama. Maybe a boat, maybe a plot of land somewhere so far from the south sides I've claimed that I would get lost on the way. I admit, sometimes my homies talk about their families immigrating and I get jealous. We lost the land We were custodians over before I was a twinkle in the eye of a twinkle in the eye of a twinkle in the eye. Closest I got to a homeland is my mama's Caucasian pitch on the phone calling the police. Closest I got to a homeland is not never calling the police. Closest I got to a homeland is my daddy's laugh in a spades game. Closest I got to a homeland is my lover's tongue talking or otherwise. Closest I got to a homeland is the funk under a DJ's needle and my handful of a dance partner. Not to be dark, but I am. Not to be dark, but the planet is on fire. Not to be dark, but they move in capitals because the water is coming up. Not to be dark, but our bones are in that water too. Maybe that's my capital. Once the polar capitals melt and there's a whole lot less land for folks to buy and sell and steal, maybe everybody will feel a little more dark, will feel a little more homelandless like we do. Why you think I call my compatriots homies? Maybe ain't no home, except for how your beloveds cuss or pray or pronounce. Cool. All right. Cool. I've been thinking about my grandma a lot because, yeah, I don't know. I guess because, I'm always thinking about my grandma. She passed when I was 16, but, you know, one of the things I always remember when I was young is she was from Montgomery, Alabama, and she was, you know, when I was young, she taught me about like poll tests and draft exams specifically. And, you know, I think it's interesting, right? Because we've been having this conversation about voter suppression and whatever in this country. And I've been sort of disturbed by the way in which that conversation has neglected the ever presence of these things. Yeah, like as if these are sort of new phenomena. And so I'll read this poem, which is about her. And I guess I should also say, I wrote this poem after hearing an interview with Tamir Rice's grandmother. For those who don't remember, Tamir Rice was the young man who was murdered by the police in Cleveland for having a toy gun. And his grandma said this thing, that he was not allowed to play with toy guns, and neither was I as a kid, which I think is probably a fairly common rule in a lot of Black households because people kill Black people. So. Conceal. Grandma, who kept books for a living and read corner store romance novels. Grandma, who kept dictionaries on the kitchen table and slurred words into contraction. Grandma, who taught me how to pass a poll test and how to beat a draft exam. Grandma, who told me to study hard and leave school if the MBA was an option. Grandma, who bought black and called us her little niggas with a smirk. Grandma, who taught me how to shoot a bank shot and told me to quit the team if I rode bench. Grandma, who paid for cars in cash and gambled herself broke on weekends. Grandma, who hid toy guns I got as gifts, and when she passed, I pulled a real shotgun from the wall of her closet. Cool. All right, I'll read this one. This is called "Welcome to How the Hell I Talk." Yeah. And it sort of takes the form of like, a thing I do a lot is I'll like look up a place on Wikipedia and then just read all the things about it, like a town or a city or a country or whatever. So it sort of mimics that form, but you'll see. Population. Oh, so welcome to How the Hell I Talk. Population. All the motherfuckers I started saying in front of my mother once I got to 18 and kidless and free. Climate. Cold, as in hot, as in, I swear I'm cold on the mic, not cold in this game from the free throw line. Culture and contemporary life. Dear reader, if I call you Joe, No, it's synonym for cousin or countryman. If I call you OG, it means mother or murder. Demographics, 35% Missy Bama Easiana isms from the up south old folk, 20% magnet school double speak, 15% white girl whispering in the suburbs or summer camps, 18% too many rap records, 12% my mom's work voice. Economics, free lunch tickets, and 75 cents for the ice cream truck, and FAFSA, and buying link cards from someone's relative for this month's groceries. Government, 2 branches today. Who knows what grows tomorrow if I need to make magic of my mouth for some hostile stranger to see my human. Crime, dope, cause what my folks smoked, sometimes sold, cause the hip hop songs I sung until they got in my body like dope. Sister cities, my students in Cape Town who asked what my mother tongue was since they didn't know no black folk with only English first. This the answer I should have given. Geography, everything in my throat I say and mean and shouldn't. How I cuss like the big niggas in my neighborhood because I was afraid to talk in front of them. The gang lit I know and should and shouldn't. The truths I tell that I wish were game. The verbal flourish that drops off like a waterfall. Cool. And I guess I'll read one more. I'll finish with this. I'll kick this one. This is called In Them. In them, and you too if you feel it, and you know by feel it, I don't mean bought it, and I don't mean studied, and you know by feel it, I mean the whole nation head nodding to niggas they tried to lock up or out, or I mean my whole talk a cakewalk every time I'm on the phone, tricking you into my humanity, or on my CV deceiving you into hiring a maroon. And you know, by feel it, I don't mean you opted in. I mean my people here and been here, making genius from gristle. And every moment you declare a renaissance is just every moment you fools been paying the right attention. And we not stunting that because we'd rather you pay reparations. And detention, my good people, and bad people, and not people. What you do unto the least, you do unto me. Because every time you decided I was acceptable or articulate or actually okay, you don't know who you let in. You let in my mama, and my daddy, and my greasy grandmammy, and my hood, and my woes, and all the folks who taught me my flows, and my thugs, and my killers, and all the ones you think are drug dealers, and my people, and my people, and my people, and my people, and my fine people, and them. Cool, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nate, that was beautiful. Benjamin read 2 of my favorite poems in his book, so I want to shout out one of my favorites from Finna, When I Say Chicago. Please, it's I think the whole book is worth it just for that poem, so if you pick it up, please check it out. Welcome, Kathleen. Kathleen just joined us. We're going to kick it over to Deepayan Bose. Deepayan is the artist that created a piece based on Nate's work. Deepayan Bose is a visual artist and designer from the Chicago suburbs, inspired by folklore from a young age, as well as pop culture. His work is at the intersection of stories new and old. You can find him on Instagram at dbose, D-B-O-S-E. Deepayan, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Can you guys see my screen?
I was muted. Yep, we can see it.
All right, cool. Can you guys hear me? My like screen sharing, whenever I do this, I have 2 screens, so it's like really weird. But can you guys see it and can hear me?
Yep, we can.
Cool. I always want to say that. I know everyone's tired of hearing that at Zoom meetings. But yeah, it was very, I feel this was not hard task for me, but it was a little bit strange because I am not Black, as you can see, but I think my most used word on Slack is I bet, or like that's my most used phrase on Slack. So yeah, I've growing up in Naperville, like I would like to say, yeah, I'm from Chicago, but no, I'm not. But I did have a lot of, like, I was in a lot of communities of color, Black communities, Hispanic communities, or Latino communities, Indian communities. So it was so weird. I wasn't, my own identity as an American has always shifted. But a lot of what I realized, especially reading Finna, is how much I borrow, and like the country borrows from Black culture, Black language, everything, Black food, all of that. So this isn't, this piece isn't really specific to one of Nate's like actual poems. It's just the general overall mood I got from the poem, or the work. But I actually wanted to, the poem is called, or the piece is called, I Like Your Poems, They Seem So Real. And I was inspired by it because I don't know if you did your own typesetting, Nate, but like all of the typesetting in each like line, dash, in Finna is like so purposeful. And when I saw, actually I screenshotted it, but the poem is, I like your poems, they seem so real, repeated over and over. And I almost took that as the American flag. So this piece is kind of, there's no subtext, but it does create I wanted to create a sense of uneasiness, but also there's just an uneasy relationship between, you know, Black Americans and America itself. And in some ways I wanted to like have this flag like almost, it looks like he's standing behind it, it looks like it's part of him, it looks like proud, but also like a little gritty and oppressive. So I can't speak for the Black community, but like I've had so many Black friends, and another one of Nate's poems is about being, well, it's about being a guest in a Black home, or so thank you for letting me be a guest in like a part of your culture. I can't, like, cultures aren't monolithic, but from your perspective of things, thank you for letting me in. And yeah, so this is the piece. I wish I had more to say and more to talk about it. I would like to talk about more of the poems, but that's about it.
I love this. This is like so beautiful.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was a lot of feel. Before this I hadn't drawn in like a month, so this was your work was super inspiring.
Yeah, I want this like on a T-shirt or something. This is hot.
It's digital. I have a digital. I can transfer it. So I tried to make it so maybe I can, like, you know, get some actual texture on there, do some prints. Also, I have a Kanye West School Spirit stuck in my head. Like I have Hekina. Like I've been saying that. Like it's just
yeah,
in my head. So man, it was all the references. Even though, like, you know, I'm from Naperville, but like I go to the city, take the metro. There was so many nuances that were universal, and it's so layered. And yeah, thank you for sharing it, and thank you, Larry, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Deepayan. That was great. All right. Next up, we have author Kathleen Rooney. Kathleen is a founding editor of Rose Metal Press, a nonprofit publisher of literary work in hybrid genres, as well as a founding member of Poems While You Wait. Her most recent books include the novel Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk, and The Listening Room, a novel of Georgette and Lulu Marguerite's. Her World War I novel, Cher Me and Major Widowsley, was just published by Penguin in August, and her criticism appears in the New York Times Magazine, the Poetry Foundation website, the Chicago Tribune, the Los Angeles Review of Books, and elsewhere. She lives in Chicago and teaches at DePaul. Please welcome Kathleen Rooney.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry I'm late, but it's an honor to be here. I'm gonna start by sort of just showing the book cover and the title, which, you know, as Larry already said, is Share Me and Major Whittlesey, but that kind of is convenient because in a way it's sort of the elevator pitch for the book, which is like Lillian Boxfish was based on the highest paid female advertising copywriter in America in the 30s. This is also based on two real life people. And I say people advisedly, even though one of them is a pigeon. I have my Share Me pigeon figurine that a friend gave me. The book operates where it tells the story of this sort of very famous but now mostly forgotten incident in World War I, first from Share Me, the pigeon's perspective, and then from Major Whittlesey, who's the commanding officer of this group of soldiers' perspective. And the book kind of has that A-B pattern where you first hear from Share Me and then you hear from Whittlesey and back and forth. So I was just gonna read the first page of chapter 1 and the first page of chapter 2 and then say a little bit more about where it goes from there. But just to give you a sense of the voice and how that point of view kind of operates. So first is Share Me, chapter 1. Monuments matter most to pigeons and soldiers. I myself have become a monument, a feathered statue inside a glass case. In life, I was both a pigeon and a soldier. In death, I am a piece of mediocre taxidermy collecting dust in the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History. The museum has closed and everyone has gone home. The last guests took their leave at 5:30 as they do every weekday, and even the janitorial staffers have finished their tasks. Miles of floor, polished and pine-scented, acres of displays gleaming and silent. A few hours remain before midnight. This is the eve of the 100-year anniversary of what, according to the United States Army, was the most important day of my avian life, October 4th, 1918. I'm not sure I agree. That day was an important one, certainly, but days don't carry the same meaning for pigeons as they do for humans, and my life comprised other days, days that might be equally worth note. If not to the Army, then at least to me and to those I loved. Pigeons can love. Pigeons cannot fight, yet I was once as well known to school children and grown-up citizens alike as any human hero of what was then called the Great War. Hence the stuffing of my mangled body, hence my enshrinement here in the grandmother's attic of the entire country. And so that's the beginning of chapter 1. And as you could probably tell, Share Me really was, she was so famous for delivering this message that saved this group of soldiers that when she died, they took her body and stuffed her, and you can go see her in the Smithsonian. And I just thought that was kind of a strange afterlife. So I granted the pigeon this power of sort of speech from not beyond the grave, because she doesn't have a grave, but sort of from beyond death, from this position as sort of a almost propaganda piece that the Army made her. And then chapter 2, Charles Whittlesey. Monuments matter most to pigeons and soldiers. Some matter more than others. None matter more to me than the Soldiers and Sailors Monument on Riverside Drive on the Upper West Side. It's not a monument for my war, the Great War, the war that has caused me to be known these past 3 years as Go-to-Hell Whittlesey, heroic commander of the Lost Battalion. Instead, its white marble gleams. Instead, its white marble gleams for the Union Army, which won the Civil War almost 60 years ago. The Soldiers and Sailors Monument has personal significance for me, one that has nothing to do with war. It's where I, fresh from Harvard Law School, naive and lonesome, met the man who would be my entree into the double life I led until I chose to let the war interrupt it. So just quick version of kind of how I wrote this and why I wanted to tell this story from these two people. I teach at DePaul University, and my student, Brian, I have to give credit where it's due, was in my Writer as Urban Walker class, and he wrote this poem, and he had this line in it about an old guy sitting on a park bench surrounded by pigeons, and he said, "This was no Share Me story." And then he said, "Look it up." because I always tell my students to look stuff up. And I, appreciated that Brian was kind of giving me the business. And I looked it up. And when I looked it up, I discovered the story of Cher-Ami, this pigeon who, I considered myself a World War I buff, but had never heard of her. But I did know that in World War I, pigeons were key to communications. Telephones were unreliable and easy to disable. They had runners and motorcyclists who were easy to kill. Radio was invented, but it was one-way, not two-way. And so I think a lot of people don't know that pigeons were kind of one of the most reliable forms of message carrying during World War I. So much so that like on the German side, they even had guys who were falconers who were trained to set their birds free to like eat the messenger pigeons out of the sky, which is like terrifying. So I learned that Cher-Ami ended up saving this group of soldiers led by Major Charles Whittlesey, who he was this soldier who no one ever expected to be the commander that he was, but who on the day of this great offensive was the only one to break through the line. And so he and his men got stuck in this thing called the pocket where the Germans had surrounded them. And don't worry, it's not just like a war novel. It's not just battle after battle. It's got a love story. It tells their childhood. It tells you how they got there. But during this battle, I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot. Like this is a week of waiting. And so these guys waited 5 days with no food and water to be saved. And sort of on the fourth day where Cher-Ami came in, they were the victims of a friendly fire incident where the Americans were shelling the Americans thinking they were the Germans. And so Cher-Ami saved this message, sent this message that saved their lives. And so, I don't know, I was just sort of fascinated by this story and wanted to tell about both of these people who came together. The final thing that clinched it for me that I had to write a novel about it is that Cher-Ami was misgendered her whole life. Cher-Ami, as you know, if you study Romance languages, is masculine, but when they stuffed her, they discovered she was a woman, whatever that means to a pigeon. I thought that was fascinating about what it says about our ideas of heroism. They didn't change the plaque, they just let her continue to be a he on the Smithsonian plaque. And then when I got into the rabbit hole of Charles Whittlesey, I also sort of was able to intuit that he was almost certainly a closeted gay man. He signed his suicide note, "I'm a misfit by nature and by training, and there's an end of it." And so I thought these two figures who had this sort of against the grain approach to heroism, or who are people who in their era wouldn't have been fully permitted to be themselves or to be heroes in the way that they really were heroes, was kind of interesting. So that's why I wrote Cher-Ami and Major Whittlesey. And so I think it's a sad story, but it's also a life-affirming story. Cher-Ami is funny, Whittlesey is funny, because I think things are sadder if they're also a little funny. So that's my book, and I can't wait to see what Jenn has done to interpret it.
Thank you, Kathleen. That was amazing. Lillian Boxfish and Cher-Ami are fantastic. Please check them out. And I have to say, I've been trying to get Kathleen for, I think, 2 years now to the Lit Show, and schedules just haven't lined up, but they finally did this year, so I'm very grateful. And shout out to Anderson's Bookshop, our alma mater. We both used to work at Anderson's. So last but not least, we have artist Jenn Wilson, who created a piece based on Kathleen's work. Jenn Wilson is a multimedia artist and writer based in the Chicago area. Photography and graphic design were her first loves in the visual arts. Over the years, her path has expanded to include more tactile and often much messier media, including analog and historical process photography, printmaking, and illustration. When she's not creating stuff, gaming with her family, or following bugs around in the garden, she works as an IT educator and project manager. You can follow her on Instagram at SUTRATWO. Please welcome Jenn Wilson.
Hi. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here. Kathleen, it is such a pleasure to meet you. Let me share my artwork here and I'll get into my spiel. Please forgive the awkward eye contact. I had some device quirks going on, so I'm looking at another screen to get my notes going. All right. Well, the thing about reading a work of fiction that is based largely on history is that you probably know how the story ultimately turns out. Sometimes that can be reassuring. Basically, going into this, I knew that Cher-Ami survived, which was really reassuring. I also knew that she experienced horrible injuries along the way, so that was less reassuring. You know, we know how World War I turned out. You know, you might also be familiar with Major Whittlesey. You know, if you're really a history buff who's looked into these leaders, you might know how successful he was and how respected. But the downside of knowing the history is that there's always more to the big picture. And, you know, sometimes that casts a shadow for you and affects your emotional space while you're reading. We know that our heroes had to endure a lot more before it was all said and done. Kathleen told us the story of the Lost Battalion being, you know, set upon by friendly fire. You know, there's kind of a sense of dread that goes along with that, just knowing that the communication, you know, had all these problems and that, you know, the whole thing might have been avoidable. Yeah, and, you know, we also know that even though World War I ultimately drew to a close, you know, the specter of World War II was looming on the horizon, waiting to start. So there were a lot of long shadows cast on the story from the very beginning. And, you know, right now, you know, I can't help but draw some parallels. Right now, we are living through another time when things are pretty bleak. We are weary. Our hearts are broken. I'm not going to lie. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I'm so happy that it came to me in this form and this event. But there were times when I needed to set it down and take a break and go watch a couple of cartoons or something. But, you know, if you are someone if you don't think that you're into war hero stories, if you are the kind of person who would see this book cover and keep walking, I would challenge you to pick it up, because this is not at all the typical inspirational war story. Kathleen takes such an unusual approach. And she spins that literary archetype into something very different from what you might expect if you saw this cover, if you read the book copy. There's certainly a heaviness to it given the events that are depicted. And, you know, like I said, you can expect that if you know something about the history. But the characters are so well realized. I mean, how many books do you find with a taxidermed pigeon doing much of the talking? It's awesome. And, you know, there's a skill with prose that brings such an elegance to the sixth sense of foreboding that comes with it. You know, that's a sentence I never thought I would say. But so for my art piece, in terms of the nuts and bolts, I decided to go with digital illustration, and I use a tool called Procreate. We're looking at kind of a stylized dramatic moment when our heavily stylized pigeon is taking off from its heavily stylized handler. It's just about to begin this mission of carrying a message. I use these chaotic circles to suggest the homing instinct starting to take shape as the pigeon gets oriented and figures out where she is in relation to where she needs to go. It's an amazing biological process. I decided to go, excuse me, with the kind of a stained glass sort of framing motif here. Our two subjects are posed inspirationally, and they're surrounded by these glowing golden hues. And you should know, I mean, not to spoil it for you, this won't surprise you. This is pretty much the opposite of the way this moment gets described in the book. I mean, there's mud and death and stench and the realization that two other messenger pigeons had already been shot down. And I guess you can see what I mean about needing a break. This is intense stuff. But one of my favorite aspects of the book is the way it examines the effects and consequences of idealism, and gently critiques it, but also acknowledges how badly we need it sometimes to stay emotionally alive. Ms. Rooney takes a long, thoughtful look at the way these characters kind of got stuffed into these roles. I guess stuffed is kind of a terrible pun given the taxidermy fate, but sorry about that. Anyway, the way they became famous for them through circumstances that were largely outside their control. And you know, we all are familiar with legends and heroes and, you know, comic books and all these things. As true stories gradually give way to legend over time, the literal details fall away, and our heroes become symbols that get shaped primarily by what we need from them while we retell the stories. They start to lose dimension as real beings with complications and desires and conflicts of their own. It's not always something that happens way in the future or after a few decades or centuries have gone by either. In the case of Cher Ami and Major Whittlesey, they could feel this happening during their own lives and during Cher Ami's afterlife. And the immense pressure takes a deep toll on them. And you can really feel that happening in the story. However, and this is one of my favorite things about the book, our two protagonists are also capable of idealism, and they kind of depend on it, given everything they're dealing with. This is one of the emotional truths that really come through about how vulnerable and resilient we all are, and it's beautiful. We get to see examples of beauty and idealism that our protagonists carry in their hearts and minds, and we get to see the way it helps them keep going through the darkest of days. You know, Kathleen mentioned it a little bit earlier. There's a love story. There are two love stories, and that's all I'm going to spoil. I don't want to give away too many details about those aspects because they kind of fall outside the realm of unavoidable historical spoilers. I hope you'll read them for yourself. But the book reminded me very much of a quote that I'd like to share with you. Sometimes I get into trouble when I talk about what I think an artist might have wanted us to carry away in their work, because sometimes I just get it wrong. But, you know, the story and just the life-affirming remainders of it that stayed with me so much reminded me very much of this theme that I'm going to share with you in this quote. And, you know, maybe this is part of what Kathleen wanted us to take from the story. This is quoted from an interview in the podcast On Being, in which Krista Tippett interviewed the Irish poet and philosopher John O'Donoghue back in 2008. The interview is about the idea of the inner landscape and the role of beauty in shaping our lives and perspectives. Here's the quote. "There are individuals holding out on front lines, holding the humane tissue alive in areas of ultimate barbarity, where things are visible that the human eye should never see. And they're able to sustain it because there is in them some sense of beauty that knows the horizon that we are really called to in some way. I love Pascal's phrase that you should always keep something beautiful in your mind. If you can keep some kind of little contour that you can glimpse sideways at now and again, you can endure great bleakness." I hadn't really thought about this quote in a while, but Sherami and Major Whittlesey brought it back to me. And as a reader of this book, again, I felt that it was one of the themes that Kathleen wanted to leave with us. You know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's what I took from it as I read. And I tried to convey a sense of that in the artwork as well. I wanted to create something that was beautiful, that conveyed a sense of grace about the moment that is, you know, that there's so much attention on. So if you're interested in some more of that interview, if you click the bio link in my Instagram profile, you'll find it listed in the link tree thing that pops up. In closing, I'm grateful to GLIBA and to the Art Bar for hosting this event and including me in this incredible lineup. I'm especially grateful to the luminous Kathleen Rooney for bringing us this story and these characters in such a soulful and lyrical way. Thank you. And finally, I'm grateful to the audience at large for tuning in. Wherever you are and whatever happens in these interesting times, I hope you have something beautiful that you can keep in your mind, and I hope it carries you through. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. That was amazing. I felt like it just got to sit in on a history class and a philosophy class at the same time. It was beautiful. Thank you.
I felt that the book was really cerebral. I had a really cerebral experience reading it and crafting this piece of art, and it was really, I don't want to call it fun, but it was something I think I really needed at the time, you know?
Jen, I just want to say thank you so much. And it is always like a risk when you venture out and try to, you know, say what you think someone else meant. And I think, I mean, that was beautiful and you got it. And like, I don't know, probably everyone's pretty emotional right now, but like I cried a little. So like, thank you so much. That was amazing. I couldn't have asked for more. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes our evening. I'd like to thank our authors, Benjamin Garcia, Nate Marshall, and Kathleen Rooney. And I'd like to thank our artists, Alfredo Castil, Deepayan Bose, and Jenn Wilson. This event has been recorded and will be available on the Great Lakes Independent Booksellers website, as well as the Art Bar Facebook page, so please check that out. And like I said in the chat, we threw in some links to purchase the authors' books, so please do that. Support these authors and support indie bookstores. Everybody stay safe, be well, and thank you.